Have you ever felt just this creeping, bone-deep exhaustion that a good night's sleep just can't seem to fix?
Oh, yeah. Like you're just running on fumes.
Exactly. Just this lingering sense that you are constantly optimizing yourself, endlessly upgrading your own productivity for a world that feels like it's quietly falling apart in the background.
Right.
Well, if you are nodding right now, you are definitely not alone. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So our mission today is to explore this really fascinating piece of source material called Nine Styles, One Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's a novel in philosophical fragments written by Max and Claude under the pen name Mark Infinity.
Right. And what this text does is it uses nine distinct characters, and they're known to us only by letters, and pairs them with triads of famous philosophers.
The whole goal is really to help us understand what it actually means to exist in our current catastrophe called progress.
But before we jump in, a quick note to you listening. This text throws some massive polarizing critiques at us. Everything from late-stage capitalism to systemic inequality, deep political divides.
Absolutely. It pulls no punches.
Yeah, it doesn't. But our goal today isn't to pick a political side or endorse these specific views. We're just putting these ideas under a microscope to see why these characters feel so trapped and how these philosophies map onto our everyday lives.
And to really set the scene here, we have to completely rethink the word ruins. Like, this book isn't about ruins in the romantic sense.
Right. No crumbling, ivy-covered Greek columns.
Exactly. No post-apocalyptic movie wastelands either. It's specifically about living in modern ruins. The ruins of late capitalist burnout, screen-mediated loneliness, climate grief.
Yeah.
It's a world that looks totally normal on the surface. You've got coffee shops and high-speed internet, but then you realize the people inside it are just, well, completely depleted.
Okay, let's unpack this. We start right where the book starts, in the deeply exhausting reality of simply waking up.
Yeah, with character D.
Right, character D, he wakes up at 5:47 a.m., not because of an alarm, but he's jolted awake by a spike of anxiety.
Sounds familiar to a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. He rolls over, looks at his screen, and his phone already has 73 unread notifications.
So character D stands for Dasein, which is a philosophical term for existence. But here, it clearly stands for depleted.
Totally.
He is living in what the philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls the achievement society. Han argues there's been this massive structural shift in how society controls us.
Wait, how so? Like a shift from what?
Well, we moved away from a disciplinary society, one based on the external command of thou shalt.
Ah, like the classic factory boss telling you to work, or a strict institutional rule.
Exactly. In that world, you knew exactly who the oppressor was. But now we live in an achievement society based on the phrase I can.
Right.
We have so thoroughly internalized the demand for optimization and productivity that we just exploit ourselves.
Wow.
And the twisted part is we call it passion or self-improvement or, the hustle.
It's like we treat ourselves as smartphones that must constantly be at 100% battery. Like we're frantically closing apps in our own brains to save processing power. But the operating system itself is what's draining us.
That is a perfect way to put it.
But wait, if we are the ones demanding this optimization from ourselves, aren't we completely stuck? I mean, you can't exactly rebel against the boss and quit your job if the boss is literally you.
What's fascinating here is that is the exact trap Han is pointing to. Knowing the structure of the trap doesn't magically free you from it.
Because it's internal.
Right. The modern subject knows they're exploiting themselves. But stopping or slowing down feels indistinguishable from failure, which your nervous system literally registers as a survival threat.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And to deepen this, the text layers character D's mourning with two other philosophers, Martin Heidegger and Emmanuel Levinas.
Okay, so where does Heidegger fit into this 5:47 a.m. panic?
Well, Heidegger famously argued that to live an authentic life, we have to confront our own mortality. Death is the one thing no one else can do for you, right? It's entirely your own.
Right.
But when D tries to think about his own death to gain some perspective, it doesn't feel liberating at all. It just feels like the ultimate final deadline looming over an already overloaded task list.
That is incredibly bleak. He is lying in bed thinking, I'm going to die someday, and I still haven't answered these 73 emails.
Exactly.
It completely strips the majesty out of mortality. And this is where Levinas comes into the picture, right? How does his philosophy pull character D even further apart?
So Levinas introduces the concept of the infinite responsibility to the face of the other. He argues that ethics isn't about abstract rules. When you genuinely encounter the vulnerable face of another human being, It makes an infinite, irreducible demand on you to care for them.
And we see this play out mechanically when D is on a video call with his lonely, aging mother. Think about the last time you were on a call with a family member who really just wanted to connect, but you were secretly checking emails on another tab or, mentally planning your grocery run.
Oh, well done it.
Right. D is sitting there looking at his mother's face on the screen, but his mind is furiously calculating his exit strategy. He's optimizing his interaction with his own mother.
And that highlights the sheer cruelty of the text's central tension. Levinas tells us we have an infinite ethical responsibility to care for others, but Hahn shows us that the achievement society has left us with only a finite, burned-out capacity to actually do it.
So he's set up to fail.
Completely.
Yeah.
He desperately wants to be authentic, and he wants to be a good, ethical son. But the mechanism of the system guarantees he will fail at both, because his baseline state is just fundamental exhaustion.
So if waking up is that exhausting, and we're totally aware that this operating system is draining us, why on earth do we keep plugging back in? Why not just throw the phone in a lake and walk away?
That brings us to character F, who represents the cynical subject. And the text illustrates this with a really bizarre but brilliant joke from the philosopher Slavoj Žižek.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah, so a man goes to a psychiatrist and says, "Doctor, my brother is completely delusional. He thinks he's a chicken."
Okay.
The doctor says, "That's terrible. You need to bring him in immediately so we can commit him and get him help." And the man says, "I would, but we need the eggs."
We need the eggs. It's so funny, but it's such a perfect distillation of our cynical participation in broken systems.
Exactly. We know the system's a delusion. We know our current economic models are extracting the life out of the planet and out of us. But we need the eggs.
Right, the eggs are our social belonging, our health insurance, our rent money, the shared fiction that makes daily life possible.
What this reveals is that ideology today doesn't actually require your genuine heartfelt belief. It only requires your active participation. You just have to act as if you believe the brother is a chicken.
And character F is living this out. He's just endlessly scrolling, wandering through this digital mall.
Yeah, the flaneur of the digital age.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The text brings in Mackenzie Wark's concept of the vectoralist class.
Oh, yeah.
These aren't just rich people. These are the people who literally own the vectors of information. The algorithms, the cloud servers, the infrastructure of our attention.
Right.
If this vectoralist class literally owns the pathways of our reality, and their algorithm shows us what we want before we even consciously know we want it, aren't our tiny moments of online rebellion completely pointless?
Pretty much.
Like, if I post a fiery critique of the system, aren't I just generating more data for the platform?
Wark argues that the new frontier of exploitation isn't just about physical commodities anymore. It's about the flow of information. Your attention, your outrage, your desire, it's all extracted seamlessly. And to understand the psychological toll this takes on character F, the text brings in Walter Benjamin's concept of the dialectical image. Benjamin talked about images that show fantasy and reality in the exact same frame, producing a sudden, jarring shock of recognition.
Think about your own scrolling habits last night. How many times did you swipe past a devastating video about the climate apocalypse, and the very next segment instantly autoplayed an influencer selling luxury skincare or an ad for an ocean cruise?
It's constant.
That massive, jarring whiplash, the rising sea levels right next to the aspirational vacation. That is exactly what Benjamin is talking about.
For Benjamin, modern life operates like a dream world. It's organized around the shiny promise of endless progress, but that dream intentionally hides the catastrophe it requires to function.
The extraction, the underpaid labor.
Exactly. The slow violence against the environment. The dialectical image shatters that illusion by forcing you to see the dream and the catastrophe simultaneously. Character F experiences this constantly while scrolling.
He's partially awake to the reality.
Right. But waking up to a catastrophe while everyone around you is still comfortably asleep in the dream world, it just feels like madness. It's incredibly isolating.
So, if our digital rebellion just feeds the algorithm and the digital dream world, is that all-encompassing? Does that mean our only actual leverage left is physical?
Yeah, we have to look at the real world.
Is that why the text abruptly pivots to people working in physical spaces with dirt and history books?
Exactly. That pivot is essential. We leave the digital wandering and meet character R, a Black woman who is an academic reader, and character H, a high school AP history teacher.
Okay, let's start with character R. She's navigating this massive tension in academia, right?
On one hand, she's engaging with Roland Barthes' famous essay, The Death of the Author. Barthes argues that a text's meaning shouldn't be dictated by the author's original intent.
Right. The meaning is created by the reader in the act of reading.
Yes. But R holds this theory up against bell Hooks' concept of the oppositional gaze.
The irony here is so sharp. The author with a capital A, historically the traditional white European male creator, was suddenly declared dead and irrelevant by academic philosophy at the exact moment that marginalized writers were finally fighting to be recognized as authors at all.
It's wild timing.
Right. R points out that you can't liberate a prisoner whose imprisonment was never acknowledged in the first place, so she refuses to just passively receive these texts.
She insists on reading with an oppositional gaze. For you listening, think about watching a classic film or reading a historical novel where nobody looks like you, thinks like you, or values your humanity.
You have to read against the grain just to survive it.
Exactly. You actively look for the hidden ideologies and find your own power in the margins of a text that was never built for you. That oppositional gaze is an active mechanism of reclaiming agency.
And then we see character H, the high school teacher, applying this mechanically in her classroom.
Yeah, she is fighting what the Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci calls a war of position.
So what does this all mean? Are the authors of this text saying that the real revolution isn't a massive cinematic protest in the streets with banners and megaphones, but just a tired high school teacher stubbornly revising a history lesson on a Tuesday afternoon?
In many ways, yes. Gramsci realized that power isn't just maintained by brute force, it's maintained by hegemony. Hegemony is the process of making the dominant ideology feel like simple, unquestionable common sense.
Ah.
So, a war of position is the slow, highly unglamorous cultural work of building a counter-hegemony. Character H is acting as what Gramsci calls an organic intellectual.
She isn't pontificating from an ivory tower.
Right. She is deeply embedded inside the messy institution of a public school. By subtly tweaking her curriculum, she is showing her students that the systems they live under were constructed by human choices, which means they can be dismantled.
But she's also dealing with the immediate fallout of that. She faces incredibly angry parents who want to ban her curriculum and have her fired.
Yeah, the pushback is real.
But instead of going to war with them, she applies Chantal Mouffe's concept of agonistic pluralism. She actively chooses to treat these parents as adversaries, not enemies.
That psychological distinction is vital for a functioning democracy. An enemy is an existential threat, someone you seek to completely destroy or silence.
Right.
An adversary, however, is someone whose ideas you fiercely oppose, but whose fundamental right to exist and participate in the democratic space you still recognize. You seek to defeat an adversary democratically, not eliminate them.
Because if you treat them purely as enemies, you end up reproducing the exact same authoritarianism you think you are fighting.
Exactly. Character H uses her classroom to do what Ernesto Laclau calls articulating the people. She helps isolated students recognize their shared structural struggles, slowly forging a collective we.
It's beautiful work, but man, it is so agonizingly slow. And this methodical war of position isn't just limited to human politics. The text extends this to the physical Earth itself.
Right. How do we relate to nature when the planet is in a state of ongoing crisis?
We meet character N, an environmental consultant, and character T, who spends her time tending to a vacant lot.
N's storyline perfectly illustrates the paralysis of modern environmentalism. He is grappling with Timothy Morton's concept of hyperobjects.
Like climate change.
Yes. A hyperobject is a phenomenon so massively distributed in time and space that it becomes sticky. You can't step outside of it to look at it objectively because you are already inside it and it's inside you.
So N meticulously reduces his personal carbon footprint. He cuts his flights from 12 a year down to 3.
But because the hyperobject of climate change is so vast, his personal reduction feels simultaneously morally necessary and entirely laughably futile.
He sits in these endless bureaucratic meetings about a new dam project, trying to use Bruno Latour's idea of a parliament of things.
Trying to slow the machine down.
Right, letting the local watershed and the migrating salmon have a voice in the room.
But the machine wins and the dam gets built anyway.
Which is devastating. Meanwhile, character T is taking a completely different approach. She's practicing what Donna Haraway calls staying with the trouble. T isn't trying to solve global warming. She's just handing a small, vacant lot in the city, observing a fungal network, and raising 3 urban chickens named after feminist theorists.
Yeah, she goes small.
Let's be real, though. If climate change is a massive hyperobject pressing in from all sides, Does paying deep attention to 3 chickens and a patch of weeds in a vacant lot actually accomplish anything? Or is it just a psychological coping mechanism? A way to feel a false sense of control while the world burns?
This raises an important question about how we define accomplishing anything.
Hmm.
Capitalism conditions us to think only grand, top-down technological fixes matter.
Right.
But T is learning a different mechanism from the anthropologist Anna Tsing. Tsing studied matsutake mushrooms, which are fascinating because they only grow in ruined, deeply disturbed environments, like forests ravaged by industrial logging. Tsing shows that life, complex networks, and value can still emerge in the capitalist ruins. By tending to her chickens and her small garden, T is physically practicing what Haraway calls symbiosis.
Symbiosis, making together, as opposed to autopoiesis, which is just making oneself.
Exactly. The old biological model viewed the organism as an isolated unit competing for resources. Symbiosis recognizes that nothing makes itself. We are continuously made and remade by our entanglements with other species.
So T's gardening isn't a delusion of saving the world. It's a deliberate practice of making kin. She is creating a tiny node in the network that adds life rather than extracting it.
But to do that, to stay with the trouble without giving in to despair or burnout like character D, the text suggests we have to radically shift how we listen to ourselves. We have to learn to listen to our physical bodies.
Which brings us to the final 2 characters, Character A and Character P. Character A is a mother trying to write an academic paper at her kitchen table amidst absolute chaos.
And she's exploring the philosopher Julia Kristeva's concept of the abject. The abject refers to anything that threatens our neat, socially constructed boundaries of what is clean and proper.
Right.
Kristeva points out that before we had language or social rules, we were literal physical bodies growing inside another physical body.
The reality of a maternal body constantly produces objection.
Right.
It leaks, it overflows, it disrupts schedules.
It physically proves that the boundary between self and other was never as firm as professional society pretends it is.
Think about the contrast there. You have this sterile, objective, linear world of traditional academia, and then you have a toddler spilling juice and screaming while Character A is trying to type.
It's total chaos.
But instead of separating them, Character A writes directly from this messy, permeable bodily space.
She rejects the neat, linear arguments of traditional institutions because they just don't reflect the biological reality of living.
And then Character P is dealing with a different kind of bodily knowledge. He is fighting a desperate battle against nihilism.
Right. To survive, he turns to Cornel West's idea of hope as a discipline and Audre Lorde's concept of the erotic as knowledge.
Now, when Lorde uses the word erotic, she doesn't just mean sexual. She defines the erotic as a deep, internal, felt sense in the body of what is profoundly right and what is genuinely meaningful to you.
Exactly.
Society trains us to make decisions like a spreadsheet. Pros, cons, objective data. If a decision doesn't optimize our career, it's deemed irrational. But Lorde and West are saying the spreadsheet is lying, and our gut, this erotic bodily knowledge, is our only true compass. But isn't it terrifying to throw away the spreadsheet?
It feels incredibly risky, especially because marginalized groups have historically been explicitly taught by dominant cultures to distrust their own bodily knowledge.
To view their intuition as irrational or overly emotional.
Right. But Character P realizes he spent years making practical, spreadsheet-approved decisions, and they have left him utterly hollow.
So he makes a choice.
He decides to attend an unglamorous, tiring, local tenant organizing meeting. Not because the metrics said it was the most optimal use of his evening, but because his deep bodily sense told him it was the right room to be in.
Reclaiming that felt sense and practicing hope as a strict discipline rather than a fleeting emotion is the ultimate antidote to modern nihilism.
You act as if change is possible because your conscience demands it, and the physical practice of showing up is what actually produces the meaning.
So we've walked through these modern ruins with these characters. We watched D wake up to crushing burnout. We watched F wander the cynical digital dream world.
We saw H building counter-hegemony in her classroom.
And T tending her urban chickens. And as the text brings all these threads together in the outro, the big reveal is, well, these 9 characters never actually meet.
No, they don't?
They don't form a superhero team,
Yeah.
and they definitely don't solve the apocalypse. D is still exhausted at the end. H is still fighting the angry school board.
A is still writing at her messy kitchen table. T is still in the garden.
The book offers absolutely no neat cinematic resolution.
Because offering a neat resolution would be a betrayal of the philosophy. As the author notes, the continuing is the point.
Ah, I love that.
The book views this modern catastrophe not as an ending, but as the middle. And the middle is the only place where anything can actually be done. It's a call to keep looking and to claim this messy present as undeniably ours.
The middle, I really like that.
Yeah.
So, to you listening, if we stop waiting for a pristine, magical event to rescue us from the burnout and the digital dream world, what is the one ruined thing in your own life, your own overgrown, vacant lot that you can start tending to today?